Okay, Arthur's asked me to do a bunch of videos on some of the key questions that we get asked. And if you want to ask us questions, then why don't you Facebook us, private messages, or send an inquiry through the website. It's thegoodpropertycompany.co.uk. But yeah, private Facebook, go ahead, that'd be cool. Be interesting to see what you want to ask. But some of the key questions we get asked. So I don't know if you saw recently, I was in New York and I did some of those. So we've got stuff on how to start, how to be a landlord and all that kind of thing. One of the really key questions we get asked is, should I keep the property or should I sell it? I know. No, I do know. Or rather, I know what I would do. And so really the question is, what's my strategy? What should I do? So should I keep it or should I sell it? So number one, I would actually say that depends on where you want to be in 5 years' time. So I would always ask you to write a business plan for year 1 and a business plan for year 5, because year 5 is going to be, well, I can see myself here or doing that or earning this much money or owning these many assets. Whereas year 1, it's kind of like wood for trees. I don't, how do I get started? So that's why I want you to write a wood for trees, how do I get started business plan, and a 5-year plan which says I can see myself over there. And therefore, if I'm going to be over there in 5 years, where do I need to be now? So write that business plan and look at what income do you want to achieve on a monthly basis, and then what asset base do you want to achieve, and ideally what kind of loan to value, i.e. how much of the assets, so how much is wealth and how much is simply borrowings that you're the custodian and running the mechanism, but the bank owns it basically still. So do that first, because that will define, and the 5-year plan is much harder than the 1-year plan. And then the second thing that's going to predicate do you keep it or do you sell it is going to be cash flow. How much cash have you got, and what's your choice? Are you going to raise it through mortgages, through commercial loans, through private investors, or is it going to be out of your own mortgage? That's how I started, 60 grand out my own mortgage. And then actually I went on to borrow 600,000 initially and bought a 1.8 million portfolio, then jumped out and then built millions of pounds worth of portfolio. But 1.8 million was like more than I ever thought was possible at the time. So how are you going to fund it, and what's your cash flow? So I would actually ask you to look at doing a cash flow planner for about 18 months out. What's your cash flow looking like every month? So what's your income and what's your expenditure, and then sort it by date. You can do this with a really simple Excel spreadsheet. We give it to our mentoring clients. So sort it by date and then put the item of the expenditure, and then it's a positive if it's money coming in, it's a negative if you're having to spend it. So it's easy to do an 18-month cash flow. You do you go, well, how many rents have I got? You do 18 months of each of the rents. You go, how much is my insurance? How much is my gas, my electricity, my water rates, my council tax? How much is my mortgage? I'm going to set out 10% for repairs. Great, what's my cash flow? And then sort it by date. And then what do I think my void rate is going to be? And then that's more or less it. I mean, you'll have some, and what's my management costs? You have some emergency stuff, but actually I would suggest that if you do 10% of rent roll for repairs, broadly speaking, that's going to cover you. And then you'll identify where the cash flow gaps are, and your choice is, do I borrow that money to cover the cash flow gaps, or do I do some buy to sell to cover the cash flow gaps? Or third thing is, what do you want? So do you want a car? Well, do a couple of buy to sells and buy yourself a fancy car. Good. It's easy done. Or like me, are you a complete keeper? So we're known for doing buy to sell, and we've done a lot of buy to sell really successfully. We've had the few occasional blips, but guys, this is property, it's going to happen. But we've I think the last 42 that we counted up sold for 402,000 quid more than we anticipated as a total group. We had 8 that sold under, 28 that sold over, and then the rest were sold out. So, and of those 42, I think we've got 4 just about to tip over the line, but we're pretty sure that they're going to sell. So that's a lot of money. But for me, I'm a keeper. So I do buy to sell, and I love buy to sell, but I only do buy to sell in order to buy to keep. Do you see what I mean? So I do buy to sell to raise more deposits if I decide I don't want to kind of borrow money to buy the full thing, to do buy to keep. So I'm afraid to say I haven't answered your question. I've said it depends on what your 5-year plan is, your 1-year plan. It depends on your cash flow. It depends on what you yourself require. If you want to buy a fancy car, mate, just do 2 buy to sells. And it depends on your nature. So I am long-term a keeper, short-term a buy to seller. And probably I think last year I kept 7 projects that were supposed to be buy to sell, because I was like, nah, I'm going to keep them. They're fabulous. So I would suggest long-term wealth is buy to sell. Short-term cash flow is, long-term wealth is buy to keep, short-term cash flow is buy to sell. I hope that gives you a bit of clarity. Go back to the drawing board, write your plan. Good luck.